Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield holding it down for us in the DraftKings Boston studio. We are back, and we are brought to you by Wrangler. Made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GoJo15. Got a great show for you, as always. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us that 5-star rating, and check us out here. Back again, live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on DraftKingsNetwork.com, DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, and more. Tons to get to since we have been off since last Wednesday, before the Thanksgiving games and all of the halftime shows, before rivalry weekend in college football and all the craziness there, the coaching carousel that's starting to spin round and round in that sport, and a full weekend of NFL games after that. But Dad, Jesse, what's going on, guys? Dad, I haven't seen you in a couple of days, and Jesse, it's been longer than we've had in a while here. You both look wonderful. Was the holiday good?
So refreshed, just hosting Thanksgiving is really relaxing. So feeling really, really refreshed and ready for this week.
So obviously sarcasm in your voice there, but it seemed by the picture you sent that the caviar and stone crabs went over very well. Again, for those that may not know, that's what Jesse's meal was, or part of the meal. What was it, pork shoulder?
Yeah, we had pork shoulder. We did have a smoked turkey, too.
You did?
Also, this photo did real numbers. People were obviously interested in seeing this, which this was like so we ate dinner at like 5:30 with the turkey and the pork shoulder and everything. So this is stuff that goes out at like, 2. There's like a cheese plate and there's this stuff and you kind of do your grazing. There's no like lunch. So we don't do the like midday, like 3 p.m. meal. We do it at kind of like normal dinner time.
Yeah, we don't do the 3 p.m. either. We do like the noon or 1 o'clock area.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, no later than that. That's our first meal. And then everything is tucked away for an hour or two before it's all brought back out for then a second meal. Again, both meals involve dessert as well. So I was always, whenever we were at a place they didn't eat till 5:30 or 6, I thought, my God, that's too long. And I'll fill up. That's the problem, is I fill up on everything else. I have no self-control to not slam dip and chips and anything else that's out there for an appetizer. And I sit down for the meal and all of a sudden I'm full. So I'm not a big fan of eating late.
You would have been slamming that caviar, just filling up on
No, I would not.
Fish eggs.
No.
God.
Yeah.
Just pounding caviar. Man knows one speed when it comes to the eggs, and that is full speed. We will
Mike,
get
have
to
you had caviar?
a full plate of Thanksgiving. No, I have not had caviar, and I don't know when I'll next be in a setting, unless we go to one of Jesse's like fancy Gatsby parties where we can do this, because I don't know of another setting where I might be able to even encounter caviar.
I'll get
because
you some
Jesse,
caviar.
I can feel comfortable saying this. You are my only caviar friend. I don't have friends that would be in the weight class to even have caviar as an option at their dinner table. So thank you for introducing me to a very different world.
You're welcome. And I would just like to say, this is a special occasion food. It's not like I just have caviar at my house all the time. So I just want to lay that out.
Somehow, Mike, I see you and I at Jesse's house trying the caviar, and we'd be reenacting Tom Hanks in Big and just kind of letting it fall out of our mouth as we taste it for the first time.
I just know you'd hate it.
I just don't see it.
I just know you'd hate it.
Yeah. We won't waste anybody's caviar. What we will do is maybe reheat it up in a plate with leftovers. We do have some Thanksgiving leftovers to get to on this show coming up in a little bit. Also, much the same way that in a broadcast, when a whole different channel of people or you're watching a different game and they send you to the second one on like CBS, we would like to welcome in all of the people that haven't been decorating for Christmas and putting their decorations up and listening to Christmas music to the holiday season. We've been expecting you. Welcome to the saving light of all of this fun as we get going here. And that translated right into the NFL weekend, guys. We had a doozy this weekend. I feel like we got a lot of narrative stuff pushed ahead, and no better place to start with that than the Ravens-Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Two teams that seem always a bit perplexing and tied together. The Baltimore Ravens get a 20-10 win over the Chargers, Dad, and we've seen frustrated Brandon Staley in the prior weeks. It feels like every week we're waiting around wondering what might be the straw that breaks the camel's back when it comes to his tenure with the Ravens, but he kind of was able to flip the script last night. A defense that had been so maligned, especially on the back end coming off that last game, really was able to hold this Baltimore Ravens offense in check for a large portion of the night. So, Dad, did you come out of this feeling any better or worse about Brandon Staley's future with the Chargers?
No, I almost think that that's pretty close to being sealed, unfortunately, because the bottom line is they still lost. You know, we know there's nothing moral going on, moral victories going on. There's nothing moral going on. No moral victories going on in the NFL.
Moral going on with the Chargers locker.
So while the defense did play better, and that's Brandon Staley's side of the ball, they switched up some personnel in the secondary, which seemed to help them, and you know, held somewhat this offense in check to 20 points. The Baltimore defense is just fantastic, though, as we'll talk about what's going to keep them going. But you do have Lamar Jackson, obviously, to give you some big plays. But no, not really. I don't think while the Chargers lose close games, now this was a 10-point game, but you know, they had it close in this one. You know, they had it 13-10 in a drive with under 2 minutes to go before then Baltimore got kind of an easy run touchdown when they were trying to burn the clock. So it didn't 10 points. It didn't really look like 10 points. It was looking like the Chargers maybe could make a game out of this. But I don't think so with the Chargers. Certainly congrats to Lamar, one of now 4 quarterbacks with 5,000 rushing yards. He did it in the fewest games. In 82 games, Michael Vick had been the fewest at 104 games, throwing Russell Wilson and Cam Newton, I believe, as the other ones. But, you know, like we're going to talk about with Buffalo, how they were in that game because of Josh Allen's running, and with Lamar Jackson's legs, we can sit here and talk about them passing better and a different offense in Baltimore. I get it, but those two teams are going nowhere if those quarterbacks aren't running the ball a decent amount of time because of how well they do run the ball.
Does that worry you at all? Like, I look at this Ravens offense and I feel like we keep waiting for the next version of it to install and the passing attack to start to catch up with it. Now, in this game, Zay Flowers had a receiving touchdown and then the end around to seal the game. He's been everything that you've hoped for, and God, for the Chargers, look away every time that pops up, knowing that one pick after you took Quentin Johnston, who so far has really struggled compared to a lot of the other rookie receivers in this opening stanza. You saw the guy that you could have and would have fit very well into the fold there. But, Dad, 177 passing yards last night against the Chargers defense that came into that game, second to last in yards per attempt allowed through the air, 25th in completion percentage allowed by opponents, and giving up the 5th most passing first downs in the NFL. That to me was kind of a concern, where you looked at this as an easy opportunity for them to be able to create some matchups downfield, and they weren't able to do it against a unit that I get shuffled things around, and I'm sure, you know how it is. I mean, we talk about this all the time when we had the Alabama guys on. Nick Saban's the secondary coach, so who gets it the hardest in practice? It's always going to be the Alabama DBs. There's always going to be an emphasis on that room. For Brandon Staley, when that's your side of the ball, and when that group in particular has been the issue lately, you knew he was going to spend time harping on it, but that doesn't change the personnel issues they've had and all the other things that have allowed teams to get over on them. So there is part of me that looked at this from Baltimore through the air and went, all right, is this some of the same old stuff that we've been worried about that ultimately puts a cap on their ceiling, or is this defense just that good combined with that rushing attack to where they're going to be fine and be able to still make hell in this year's version of the AFC playoffs?
So what I'll say is the passing game will produce more, right? They bring in Odell Beckham, who it was he's hopefully starting to pick up now, especially with Mark Andrews going on IR. Zay Flowers has been having a year. You look at Lamar, again, the talk had been because of Todd Monken coming in that this passing game was going to improve. And by the end of the season, Mike, it will. Maybe not in touchdowns. He has, 13 touchdowns and his high is 36 back in 2019 at 26 in 2020. But what he is going to have, he's only 500 yards away from his most passing yards ever. He's only been over 3,000 yards once, and that was back in 2019, a little over 3,100 yards. He's going to beat that. I mean, he could average a little over 100 yards a game in the last handful of games, and he's going to beat that. So from a passing yardage standpoint, he's going to be throwing for more yards. Like I said, not going to equal the touchdowns. And his interceptions are low. He's always had single-digit interceptions except for 1 year. But that's why I even said at the beginning of the year, even about Josh, that we're going to talk about. Does it worry me? No, it doesn't worry me. Because they are passing the ball better. And we know for the Ravens, it's all about the playoffs. You got to get wins in the playoffs. That's where they've tripped up. So they are passing the ball better. But you're not getting anywhere without Lamar and his running. You're not getting anywhere without Josh Allen and his running. So while you can improve upon the passing game, which is something they wanted to do, and I think by all standards they're going to, especially from a passing yardage, and we finally have weapons, or Lamar finally has some weapons on the outside. So I do think that's improved, but it's still going to go how I think his legs can carry him in certain situations.
I think bringing up the Mark Andrews thing is worthwhile. That's still something that's new in how their offense is adjusting. Isaiah Likely, who's working into that role. And I think overall I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, mostly because this seems like a defense year. Like, for whatever reason, this year in the NFL seems more marked by great defense. And Baltimore last night, my God, I can't believe I had people trying to gaslight me into thinking Kyle Hamilton wasn't a dude. Like, we spent valuable brain cells having to debate his freaking 40 time coming out in the draft, only to watch that space alien pterodactyl hang out in the curl and just decimate opposing offenses. Last night was, if it wasn't already secure, and he's been playing at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level this year, let last night be the final nail in the coffin of anybody who had doubted the versatility of that athlete.
So you go back to like a Jamal Adams when he got in the league, a Derwin James. We said that's probably one of the positions that's morphed into a encompassing all. Play deep, play linebacker depth, play line depth, right? And then Kyle Hamilton comes in at 6'4". He's freakish. He has freakish size for that ability to play the three parts, deep, middle, and up at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, I'm so with you. That's why, as we talk about this every year, my God, the 40 cost. I mean, it's ridiculous unless you're running a go route every single play. You know, to me, it just blows my mind. Watch somebody play and it wasn't a struggle early on for him of kind of where to find his niche in that defense. And now they found his niche, and that niche is play everywhere. play everywhere because you can.
Yeah, it's the Thanos meme, fire everything, and that's what they do, and that's what Mike McDonald and that defense does, and that's why I think they're going to continue to be in a great shape as they figure out life without Mark Andrews here going forward for that team. Dad, you've brought up Josh Allen a couple of times, so Jesse, let's get to Josh Allen and the biggest game of the Sunday slate, the Eagles and the Buffalo Bills. That is an absolute classic.
My God, yeah, this one was a total instant classic. So, Eagles won 37-34. They were down 17-7 at the half. And guys, the Eagles have now tied the longest streak of comeback wins in a single season. So they are only the fourth team in league history to win 4 straight games while trailing at halftime. And when this was coming down to the wire, okay, nothing was rattling Jalen Hurts. The image of him with just no reaction as Jake Elliott kicked the 59-yarder in the rain, sending the game to OT. It's going viral. He's just sitting there like, here we go. And then after scoring the game winner in overtime, he was unruffled, just like, what do you expect?
What's y'all want me to say?
I mean, he is him. He's so handsome. It's just, I was just like, wow. so handsome, winning the game.
He's got it all.
Oh, God, he really
does. That quarterback center exchange, he is actually getting the ball snapped to him from a sexier man somehow. You wouldn't think it's normally possible until you remember that Jason Kelce is the one handing him the football on each and every snap. So hubba hubba with that battery for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's also sneaky become my favorite part of being at games now is watching after the game because you see him there with the selfie video. Teams in the NFL love doing this from their account, and so I love watching after the game when some NFL social personnel member has to walk up to a guy that just finished going out and slamming himself into other 300-pounders for 3 hours and hands him this little phone so he can talk to the fans there. And as Jesse mentioned, Dad, Jalen Hurts once again calm, cool, collected in a game that was an absolute slop fest. It was raining the entire night. They broke out the Kelly Green jerseys again in a way that I was not prepared for, and I knew right away once I saw that Buffalo was in trouble, despite the fact that early on they were able to bother Jalen Hurts a lot in the first half of this game. So what changed, Dad? What changed from one half to the other for this Philadelphia Eagles team?
Well, I mean, for Philadelphia Eagles, we've talked about them all year of they're winning. They're the first 10-win team, but we keep waiting for them to put an entire game together, right? It's kind of the weirdest thing. They're the best team in football, the best record in football. We're still kind of waiting till they get consistently put it together because, as Jesse mentioned, they're coming from behind 4 times down at halftime, 2 times 10 points to KC and 10 points yesterday, and they come back and win. So they've become this second half team, and you always wonder, so you give a lot of credit to adjustments at halftime. Right now, it's still execution on the field, but you're down for a reason. Whatever that reason is, it could be different. You could be out-executed. You could be turnovers, whatever the reason is. But you come out and you're able to flip the script a bit. That to me, I'm always so interested in how you come out. Well, we talk a lot about the middle 8, right, Mike? The last 4 minutes of a half, the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. And the third quarter to me is so key on how you come back from something. How do you react to what has been done to you? Because you look at Buffalo put up over 500 yards. Over 500 yards of total offense. Josh Allen threw for over 300. Also rushed he accounted for 4 touchdowns. Jalen for 5 touchdowns. I mean, you got your money's worth in this one, but Philly has become such an excellent or a better second half team from whether it's an X's and O's standpoint or an execution standpoint. They have been getting it done in that case in the second half. So this doesn't shock me now. The game was over in overtime. That pass to Gabe Davis, I mean, this game is over. Buffalo is winning this game. I don't know how those two missed the connection, Josh Allen and Gabe Davis, in the end zone in overtime. But a touchdown, first drive, that would have been the end of the game. Gabe Davis threw his helmet on the sideline. He was ticked. I don't know where that one went wrong, where the miscommunication was, but Gabe Davis was more to the outside, toward the outside pylon, and Josh Allen threw it more to the inside. That was the ball game. And then give credit to Jake Elliott. I mean, you kick a 59-yard field goal.
For anyone that missed it, by the way, it was that final third down play for the Buffalo Bills in overtime. Philly sends an all-out blitz to their credit on defense, and Josh Allen has to try and throw it right away. Gabe Davis runs a corner. Josh Allen throws it straight, and the rest is history on that one, Dad. Oh. And I think that's one of those things when you look at in overtime what the story of this is going to be. A lot of Buffalo Bills fans upset with Sean McDermott because on one side you had the Philadelphia Eagles defense that seemed aggressive in the certain situations they needed to be in overtime, while we watched the final drive for Philadelphia and Sean McDermott's Buffalo defense that he's in charge of, that he's calling the plays of, sat back, gave him soft zones, gave him easy completions on that drive to get down in range for the kicker and Jake Elliott that you're talking about that had gone out there and been nails. And so I think there's understandably some frustration on the Buffalo side with how their defense decided to play the most important points in the game because they had been so great early in the game, when really Philadelphia's, I think, adjustment was simplify and let your great players be great. I saw Mina Kimes tweet it that they're never out of a game because, surprise, surprise, they've got great players, but it allows you to just go out there and say, all right, hey, we're going to lean a little bit more on the run. They got the ball into DeAndre Swift's hands a little bit more. Hey, we're going to lean back into the RPO passing game. That's such an easy part of this because our quarterback, despite being banged up right now and despite having an O-line without Lane Johnson playing right tackle last night, which was kind of a late surprise for them, they were able to adjust and compensate for that in pretty simple ways because, again, when you're incredibly talented, it allows you to simplify what you're doing and not have to go through all the bells and whistles because of it.
31 pass attempts, 32 runs for 185 yards, by the way, on the ground. Jalen Hurts had the same amount of carries as DeAndre Swift. I mean, that's their magic sauce. And then on the touchdown play, that's when Buffalo did get aggressive, right? They went hard to their left, and Jalen Hurts runs the quarterback draw to his left, away from where the blitz was going, and easy touchdown to end it. So that was a tough ending for Buffalo and another big win for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think you look at the Eagles, it was a weird, underwhelming night for the majority of the night, and they're going to find a way. And meanwhile, this Buffalo team played great, looked like a great football team, but now because turnovers went so far out of whack for them for such a long stretch, they're going to be in must-win territory every game for the rest of the season.
graphic we just debuted. Absolutely incredible work, Billy. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It is time for some sounds around the NFL. I'm just so blown away by that graphic. Mic'd Up Monday, that's right. Let's get into it. It is presented by Wrangler. So let's start with the Steelers defeating the Bengals. Nobody could stop talking about how no Matt Canada equals Steelers gaining over 400 yards, a threshold they hadn't seen in 58 regular season games. Also outgained an opponent 424 yards to the Bengals 222 for the first time all season. Now, despite this W, Mike Tomlin wasn't exactly ready to say we did it.
I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush and act like Eureka. You know, we did what we needed to do to win today, and we'll keep pushing.
Guys, everybody is like, the Steelers gained over 400 yards. This is crazy. Look at their offense go. They still only put up 16 points.
It is, but it's baby steps, and I'm sorry, it is impossible to avoid the addition by subtraction that we've seen in the NFL the last couple of weeks, Dad, between Josh McDaniels getting fired and the Las Vegas Raiders all of a sudden looking like a real football team that's making use of all the talent on their offense. And then now with Matt Canada, who had been so maligned for so long, and there had been so much focus on that. I get they still probably didn't look a ton different, but Dad, to actually get over that threshold to see Kenny Pickett pushing the ball downfield in the immediate wake of that was objectively hilarious.
So, I mean, I get the 16 points, but let's dive into Kenny Pickett, right? This was his highest completion percentage game of the year, and he threw the ball 38 times, completing 24, so over 72%. And no touchdowns, no interceptions. And so there might be people that say, well, he probably just threw the ball sideways a lot. This was his second highest average throw, was 8.4 of the year. One game it was over 9 or right at 9. So the ball was still going down the field, again, just about as much as it's been this season, and he had his highest completion percentage. And really, it was the tight ends. He was 12 of 14 to tight ends. So, and I've always said tight ends can be your best friend. You know what? So why not use them? And they were big yesterday for the Steelers, and that was a big part of that offense. So while, they only put up 16 points, you could see the little improvement. Ball still going downfield a bit. Better completion percentage. So there is, I think, something to that. It didn't translate into a lot of points, but as we say, baby steps. I would agree.
Yeah, I think he had a different voice in his ear. Eddie Faulkner, the running backs coach, took over the day-to-day stuff during the week. Mike Sullivan called the plays, and he said, it's a difference in your ear, it's a different cadence, all that stuff. So I don't discount the effect that had. Dad, they should be excited. This was a baby step. I think this had a lot more to do with the fact that you had the Jake Browning Bengals on the other side that completely put that defense into a different place than they had been all year long. Look at the Jets. For even the best defenses that get thrown out of whack by bad complementary football, it can undermine so much of what you do when the other teams just got so many cracks at this thing in the way that the Steelers did. So I think it helped a lot to be meeting the Bengals team at this particular juncture of their season where now there's no more Joe Burrow out there. And this isn't one of those teams where you can easily plug in a backup. No slight to Jake Browning, but that team is built to exist with Joe Burrow operating at the helm and elevating the parts around it, and really nobody else. So I think this win a lot more about the Bengals and where they're at than the Steelers, who I think we're still going to find out more about even in the post-Matt Canada era with that offense. Let's stay in the AFC North, Jesse. The Broncos go ahead and ride all over another really good defense in the NFL.
Yeah, so they ended the Browns' 3-game winning streak, taking that one 29-12. Denver still streaking 5 straight wins, all versus teams that are over 500. And after the game, Russell Wilson, he's feeling that W vibe.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we're resilient. I think the best part about us is we've been resilient for all these games. We've played some really great teams, there's some, top echelon teams, obviously in the AFC. There's always adversity. And how you handle the adversity really shows who you are and who you can be as a team and as a player. And I think, we've handled the adversity.
And Senior,
the coach got himself.
I know you love this one. This game was a scoregami.
Oh, God.
It's your favorite.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. It's a scoregami, guys.
I texted my dad, and I thought he wanted to die as soon as I sent it to him there. It's become the thing that I will just plague him with for the rest of his life. So happy scoregami to Dad and all the others who celebrate here. One of the unique scores that we hadn't had in NFL history. Crossed off the list thanks to Russell Wilson and this Denver Broncos team, Dad, that I don't look. The defense is obviously the story because I saw Bill Barnwell tweet they gave up 70 points, and now in the midst of this 5-game winning streak, they've given up 80 during this entire stretch. So it's been a complete turnaround on that side. But I looked up the other day, Russell Wilson's 5th in the NFL in passer rating right now.
Yes.
Like, he looks comfortable. This offense is so sure of who it is now. It starts up front. Javonte Williams and this offensive line are no doubt the engine that make it go. But Dad, Cortland Sutton during this stretch has been a great stretch the field threat for them. Didn't have a reception of over 30 yards in the first 6 games, and now has at least 1 in 4 of the last 5 games during this win streak. So between that, how comfortable Russell Wilson looks, buying time and extending plays in the pocket, this Broncos team does seem to have a lot of momentum building towards next season, if not the end of this season.
Yeah, listen, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's not turning the ball over. And, we're going to look at the offense because we always look at the relationship of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson and how this was going to work. And it's certainly, I heard him in an interview talking about the progression of this team and how it's gone. Let's look at the defense, right? And is it sustainable what they're doing? They have a 5-game winning streak going on. Same with the Eagles, 5-game winning streak. In the last 4 games, they have 15 takeaways. And you know how that goes, Mike. It comes in bunches, and then all of a sudden it disappears. So can you keep that up? But normally once it starts coming, you kind of have that year where you can keep getting the turnovers. We'll see, because that's been a monster part of that is changing possession. Obviously, with the Browns in this game, they get their starting quarterback hurt on a play that was a roughing the passer, which quite honestly I didn't really think was roughing the passer. Yet he took a hard shot in this one. So give that. And Myles Garrett. Now we kept talking about this Cleveland Brown defense keeping you in games. Myles Garrett in a sling after that game could barely put on his own shirt. So that's something to keep an eye on, because if they're going anywhere, and right now they're in the playoffs. Right now they are. But if they're going to continue that, they got to keep that defense healthy.
I agree. I think the Broncos turnover stuff is unsustainable. That's why I go back to what's the metric for success this year? Is Sean Payton able to get Russell Wilson back online? So far, the answer seems yes. That's the positive. I hold on to it. Then weird game plan for the Browns, too. Way too much drop back stuff with DTR when this game was still within reach. I was really not sure, and I know Mark Sanchez calling the game was too, why you weren't running the ball more with him. So another game that feels a little bit more about the opponent than maybe the team that won. But Jesse, let's get to one more here with the Giants taking down the Patriots in an offensively offensive game.
Yeah, real stinker, this one. So Giants defeating the Patriots with nothing really on the line here except for draft positioning. But there was some drama, okay? The internet was abuzz with reports that Brian Daboll, his relationship with defensive coordinator Wink Martindale was in a bad place. So Daboll responded by, one, rewarding him with a game ball. Following, like you said, the offense stunk. It was a defense-fueled game right there. And then he responded to the tension after the game. Take a listen to what he had to say about what was really going down between these two.
I'd say the biggest argument Wink and I have had is who has the last piece of pizza. So got a lot of respect for Wink. Done a good job. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so is he downplaying the situation? Is there something there, or is he just actually being like, yeah, this is BS?
I think these are a couple of beefy lads who both run hot, who every once in a while are going to get into a dust-up like that, and that's kind of their love language, Dad.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, was there a dust-up? There may have been, but pick a team, any team, and there's going to be a dust-up during the year. But when your defense only gives up 7 points, you're happy with your defensive coordinator like they are in this game. And this game, unfortunately, or I should say fortunately, I felt bad for the kicker for New England missing that, but this was a horrific game that we almost got extra time in. It almost went to overtime. Yeah, no. That would have been horrific for everybody.
Honestly, we all need to Venmo that kicker for saving us from any more time spent watching that game possible. Shout out to Tommy DeVito, though. Goes out there and notches the dub. Woo! Chicken cutlets back at the DeVito crib for everybody after that game. Let's go. need to take some time to stop and appreciate the Tommy DeVito phenomenon from this weekend, because Mitch, that game was slop, but it was so worth it. Seeing Tommy DeVito and his family, who I'd imagine is looking for Black Friday deals on Gabagool somewhere right now, 200 strong, rolling up to MetLife for that game. Dad, every member of the DeVito family looked straight out of Central Casting for another round of My Cousin Vinny. You saw him throwing up the Italian hand sign. The whole team was bought into it here. It's one of those spots, Dad, and you and I have both been on some bad football teams over the years, and you've got to find juice in the middle of a bad season to sort of get you through some of the tough moments. And for the Giants, you've dealt with injury all year. You've been the source of all this ire. We were just talking about if your head coach and defensive coordinator were fighting in the last couple of weeks. And so now you've got this backup quarterback who's a local guy who lives with his parents, who goes out here and is so aggressively Italian in America's face. And you see the way it sort of gives the team something to enjoy. Those are things that, like, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. It's not going to help you win more games than you probably would have otherwise. But there is something to be said for this being such a funny point of team morale, watching everybody just give the Italian hands meme every time a good play happens for the Giants.
Listen, you got to grab onto something, right? The year is horrific right now, so Tommy DeVito is providing that. Hey, listen, another touchdown. What's that, 6-3 starts and no turnover, no interceptions in this one? And you would think, okay, you got a third-string quarterback here. Let's make sure we control the game by running the ball. They ran for 58 yards. That's it. They were outgained by New England. New England had, I think, 15 or so more plays in this game and held the ball for like 10 more minutes than the Giants did in this game. Yet the Giants still get a win because New England's offense is so horrid. They went through two quarterbacks again, both throwing interceptions. Mac Jones throwing a couple. But the DeVito story is great. Again, spent his career basically at Syracuse and transferred as a fifth-year guy to Illinois for that last year. And it's a great story, right? Me and your mother were sitting here talking, watching this game going, you wondered if he's saying, hey, guys, party at my ma's house after the game, man, and go to, one of these neighborhoods where they got the fenced-in backyard and all the Giants are there.
After the game?
And there's chicken cutlets out there, lasagna out there. Listen, he's playing into it all, man, so let's play into it back. Because you know what? Bottom line is they're winning. They're having fun. The game is supposed to be fun. The season is awful. But what a great story that he is leaning into. The teammates are leaning into it as well. I just stand and tip my cap. It is just such a cool story.
This is his shot, right? To get some good marketing deals, right? Some good sponsorships. They're coming down the pipeline with his very, very aggressively Italian persona.
If you're not like the Rouse, and I never know how to pronounce it, if it's Rose or Rouse.
I think it's Rouse.
The sauce.
It's Rouse.
The Rouse sauce. Like, if you're like a sauce company, anything to do with pasta, aggressive gold chains, maybe plain white undershirts, God forbid, he needs to be in a cologne ad because I'm sure that guy overdoes it with the cologne. So all it's on the table right now, Dad. Like you said, like Jesse said, grab that net and catch that beautiful butterfly.
And listen, he's playing into it as well, which he should. But to the football point, what he's trying to show is, listen, he's not the future quarterback of this team and probably not the future quarterback of another team. But what he's doing is he's gaining trust that he could be around. Listen, because holding the clipboard for a number of years won't suck. Okay? You'll get a pretty nice paycheck if you can do that for a while. And what he's doing is he's proving trustworthy to hang on to the ball. In those last 3 games I talked about, 6 touchdowns, just 1 interception. And that's all you're one of the big things you're looking for in a quarterback who's not the guy when they're coming in is don't turn the ball over. Manage the offense. Don't turn the ball over to give the other team a short field. And to his credit, he's done that. So we'll have our fun with him. And like I said, he's leaning into it as he should. It's awesome to watch. But from the football side, he's got to be gaining some trust as a guy who won't go in and make that bad mistake or that turnover.
Well, and what an embarrassing foil on the other side for the Patriots, who everything you just described did the exact opposite. Refused to stop giving the football away. Were absolutely shredded by this. And credit to the Giants defense. No Dexter Lawrence out there, who I think is by far their best defensive player and completely changes the math on a lot of the pass rushing stuff. Kayvon Thibodeau and the rest of those guys bowed up and made it happen in this game. And, Dad, for the Patriots, it just continues to get worse. You had the Bill Belichick not naming a starter all week. Mac Jones goes out there at first and honestly does not look like he wants to be playing football right now anymore. It looks like a thoroughly miserable exercise for Mac Jones to be out on the field at this juncture. And you keep waiting and thinking, oh, it's Bill Belichick. Certainly they're not going to go out this sorry, and every week they continue to find new lows.
It's horrible right now. And I mean, especially when you put it in the backdrop of those 7 Super Bowls, of those parades going on in Boston, and the fact that you had the GOAT as your quarterback and what you've gone to, right? And you see what the other side is, what it was before Tom started there and what it was after Tom left. Now, again, I'm not sitting here saying that Bill Belichick doesn't deserve credit for the incredible job that the Patriots has done and what he's done. He's a walk-in Hall of Famer, obviously, like Tom Brady. They could both go in hand. They both had a lot to do with it. But we are seeing, boy, what happens when you don't have a great quarterback, right? Because they don't have a quarterback. Forgetting about a great quarterback.
No.
And that's always the toughest part when you're running out the string to your season and you know the most important position on your team, you have to start over. And that's where a number of teams are every year, and that's where the New England Patriots are. No matter what, it's going to start at that quarterback position, whether it's draft, whether it's free agent, whether it's something. They have to start over at the most important position they've had. And up to a few years ago, they didn't have to worry about that for 18, 20 years.
I guess between that and I, you know what, I almost thought during this game, man, on the other side, we always thought Bill Belichick against rookie quarterbacks was a nightmare. It was a terror.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you had Tommy DeVito actually completing some balls downfield. The Patriots defense gave up 10 points. Those guys have nothing to hang their hats on here. But the difference between them and their Jets counterpart in that division is at least the Jets have Aaron Rodgers to look forward to coming back at some point here. The Patriots are sitting there scratching their heads. Although, man, speaking of the AFC East, Dad, and old Patriots quarterback, you brought up the Brady thing. That instantly made me think of, did you see on Sunday NFL Countdown, Alex Smith completely sideswipe Rex Ryan in the middle of that clip, talking about Tom Brady, saying that the NFL is mediocre compared to when he was in the league, and Alex Smith takes out the blowtorch. And I genuinely think, for people that missed it, he talked about the fact that Tom Brady played in one of the least competitive divisions on earth during his tenure in New England in that version of the AFC. And Alex Smith is going off, I think, in defense of a lot of the guys still currently playing, how others perceived that Patriots run. Clearly, this is a little window into some other people's psyche. Completely, I think, forgetting that Rex Ryan, who is sitting next to him, coached not one but 2 of those teams inside the AFC East, in the Jets and in the Bills, during that run for Tom Brady. And Rex is just sitting there making faces the whole time, thinking, do you not realize you're just barbecuing me right now?
Yeah, I don't think Alex Smith cared. Alex Smith wanted to get his point across, and he felt that was a weak division. He didn't care who was around. The blowtorch got out of control. It's like that hose that you just turn on and it just starts wielding everywhere, right? That's what Alex Smith was doing. He didn't care who was around. He was just going to fire shots.
Yeah, well, I mean, for Rex Ryan, who routinely does that to people currently into the league right now, and considering some of his comments about Brandon Staley from this last week here, I'm not going to shed a ton of crocodile tears.
They were ridiculous comment to go get personal like that. It was absolutely ridiculous. But you know what? And then there's what Alex Smith said. Was it true? Was that one of the weakest divisions? Listen, I'm not taking away anything that they did and what Tom Brady did in the Super Bowls, because you got to do a hell of a lot to be the last team standing. But it was a pretty weak division.
I was gonna say, but Alex Smith, I'm sure. You know what? That's is. There is no better group of haters than an NFL locker room with no microphones around. And what Alex Smith just let you into was a bit of, over the years, while Tom Brady and Bill are bigfooting the entire rest of the league, is a bunch of guys in other locker rooms like, Man, we could do it if we were in that trash division. What the hell are you talking about over there? Coming up next, we'll see if Alex Smith can crack the lineup in the all-weekend team.
Back to GoJo and Golic. I'm Jesse Cofield. It's Monday, in case you were confused about what day of the week it was, because you just came out of your Thanksgiving stupor. So we need the guys to take a look back at the weekend that was and give us their all-weekend team. Fellas, take it away. We got some good ones to choose from.
Yeah, very excited for this one. We got a full platter, like you said, with Thursday and Friday in the hopper. We weren't on then, and plenty to get to there. So, Dad, I want to start off. We'll go honorable mention, second team, first team. My honorable mention for all-weekend team member, and this is me getting on my soapbox here, looking directly at the Doak Walker Award that goes to the best running back in college football, saying, how dare you, but also thank you for clearly lighting a fire under the ass of the slighted Audric Estime, who's been phenomenal for Notre Dame this season as their running back, went out there and put it on Stanford enthusiastically in their final game of the season. Audric Estime rushed for 238 yards on 25 carries in a game where he didn't see the field in the fourth quarter, or else he probably would have had a chance to go up and over Julius Jones' 262-yard single-game school record. But, Dad, he's been sensational all year for them. The engine that's made an offense largely dominated on the ground, even though we know Sam Hartman was the story coming into the year, and yet somehow inexplicably left off the list of semifinalists for the award for the best running back in the country. It was a joke. It was a sham. And Audric Estime went out and reminded them exactly why that's the case.
Yeah, it was a joke. And so the list went out before this game, but even before this game, he was up near the top in stats for running backs in the country anyway. He didn't need this game, though. We put him farther up. Those bottom line is he's going to be the first or second quarterback or running back taken in the draft. He has had an incredible year. His size, his speed, his ability to block. Oh, by the way, his ability to pick up a blitzer as well, which is something quarterbacks really, really appreciate. So I'm with you. An absolute stud.
Dad, quick one there. Were you disappointed that they didn't put him back out there to go after the record? Saw them talked on the sideline. Freeman said he talked to him. Everyone involved was kind of aware and on the same page in that situation. I would have liked to have seen him back out there for a chance at the record, but I can understand why you wouldn't want to rub your opponent's nose in it maybe. I still think it would have been pretty cool to give him a shot at that record, and I wish they would have.
I would have as well, and like I've always said, this is big-time football. You don't want him to get the record, stop him. The other side of that is, man, one extra carry, and, man, for some reason he got nicked up or hurt. Boy, you would just feel awful about that. So I could see both sides of that, but there was part of me that wanted to see him get that record. My honorable mention is going to go to the battery of Jalen Milroe and Isaiah Bond. I mean, I don't know how this happened. I don't know how this – Auburn beat Alabama. Alabama had a 0.1% chance of winning this game. It's 4th and goal at the 31-yard line for Alabama. And what does Auburn do? They rush 2 and spy 1. Jalen Milroe was standing back there for probably, a minute. I'm being facetious, but still, there's only so much area you can throw it to. You know it has to go to the end zone. How Isaiah Bond gets behind a DB and that pass by Milroe up and high for him to get it was unbelievable. Kept Alabama's hopes alive to get into the playoffs. Now they'll play Georgia as on a one-loss team, and they can knock off the undefeated Bulldogs, possibly in the SEC title game. Did not see that play coming. Thought Auburn had pulled it off. That's what Rivalry Week is all about. But, man, kudos to those two for pulling that one off.
Me and my broadcast partner, Chris Hassel, for College Football Saturday Night, we were calling the Apple Cup, which we'll get to here in a few, but we were watching that game. We had it pulled up on a computer during the game, and watching both of our reactions on the booth camera that we had set up while we were calling the game that we were at was maybe the most professionally unprofessional thing that I've done in quite some time. So it was awesome. What a wild game and finish there. Mirrored, by the way, by Jalen Hurts throwing that touchdown in the back of the end zone to Olamide for the another Alabama quarterback throwing an improbable scramble touchdown on this weekend here. Something in the water, apparently. Let's get to the second team all weekend, Dad. Another surprise here. Another Notre Dame running back involved in this. Kyron Williams had been missing a lot of games due to injury, as a lot of the Los Angeles Rams had during this stretch. Made his return yesterday against the Arizona Cardinals to the tune of over 200 all-purpose yards, 16 for $143 on the ground, 6 for 61 through the air, and a couple of touchdowns as a receiver. Dad, he was sensational, and I've been so pumped for everyone in the NFL to see the Kyron Williams that we knew in college. This guy is an insanely tough runner who makes every offensive line that he is running behind better because of how he totes the rock. And to come back off the shelf like this and announce your presence, I get it's against the Cardinals defense, but man, he made it look like the Cardinals defense out there with that effort.
Dude has 9 touchdowns in his time on the field, 6 rushing and 3 receiving. Going to be on everybody's fantasy team. I should have put him on mine yesterday for our DraftKings fantasy thing, and I didn't, and I paid the price for it. Incredible job out of him. My second team is going to go to our buddy who came on right before the football season to talk about the start of it and how much he is beloved around the country. I'm going to the Red Zone channel, Scott Hansen. Scott Hansen and what he was able to do as we're watching the Red Zone, and you start to hear that bell going off, that siren, whoop, whoop. You know, that's the old fire alarm going off, and like, are they going to have to clear out the room? And Scott Hansen was able to stay in that room. He said, I'm allowed to stay. I've been told it's safe for me to stay in here. And he stayed in there and got the job done as you kept hearing those sirens going off in the background. What I didn't know is that there is a backup crew in New Jersey at NFL Films that if something goes wrong out in L.A., that they go to this studio and group at NFL Films in New Jersey to pick up the slack, and they were ready to go. I did not know that, but kudos to Scott Hansen for staying in that studio during the fire drill or fire alarm.
Pro's pro.
Yep.
Pros pro. Scott Hansen had a situation pop up that he couldn't have possibly prepared for, that he hadn't encountered in 2 decades doing this, and handled it flawlessly. Not surprised, but a tip of the cap to Scott. And you're right. Backup Red Zone channel crew probably supplants bullpen catcher for the best job in sports now. Hang out in the studio with everybody, probably well catered because it's on the NFL's dime, and sit there and watch football with your friends. Sounds like a pretty good deal. So congrats.
Awesome.
It's absolutely incredible. All right, first team all weekend. I mentioned I was at the Apple Cup, Washington and Washington State, a rivalry that will continue through 2028, but not in this form. It won't be on Thanksgiving weekend anymore. It won't be Pac-12 rivals anymore. So ostensibly, this felt final in certain ways. And for Washington, who was looking to cap an undefeated regular season, they were 11-0 for just the second time in school history. Their biggest game of the season so far had come down to a missed Oregon kick on their home field at Husky Stadium. This time around, it was a made kick that sent them to the promised land. Grady Gross, their kicker, who I remember during the game, I was wondering about how they were setting him up at the end, and I was about to say, your kicker's on scholarship too, and then I paused because I was like, wait a minute. I don't actually know if he is, so I caught myself in real time and just talked about how good he had been, and we found out after the game, as Kalen DeBoer awarded him a scholarship in the locker room, that he wasn't then, but he certainly was after the game. Take a look at this.
Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, I'm thankful for Grady Gross. And you know what I hope Grady Gross is thankful for? The scholarship he's earned.
Wow.
Chills every time when you get a moment like that. Well earned. You see how excited his teammates were for him. One of the coolest things you'll see all weekend.
Those moments never, ever, ever get old. What a great job by him. What a game to set up now a Pac-12 championship game. By the way, your quick trivia, 10 years from now, what was the last Pac-12 regular season game? And people will know the answer to that. Is Cal and UCLA. And Cal destroyed UCLA like 33-7. So that was your last regular season Pac-12 game in that conference's history. Okay, my first team goes to a guy I've known for so long and respect so much, Andy Reid, who is walking into the Hall of Fame someday. Andy Reid is now the only coach in NFL history to lead 2 franchises with the most regular season wins. He has 130 regular season wins when he was in Philadelphia and got his 125th regular season win for the Chiefs when they beat the Raiders. Again, the only coach to lead in regular season wins for 2 franchises. So congrats to Big Red, congrats to Andy, and just an incredible accumulation on his side to go along with a few Super Bowls as well.
Yeah, Andy Reid, really, we talk all the time about Bill Belichick as the GOAT when it comes to coaching, but Andy Reid in the modern era certainly has a claim to that as well. don't get to a lot of college football around here on Monday just because the NFL is such a behemoth on Sundays right after that. But, Dad, this rivalry weekend for college football, the last weekend of the regular season, felt like it had enough that we got to get into between all of the coaching moves that are starting to happen right now and the games that we had been looking forward to for weeks, and headlined by Ohio State, Michigan, that by all accounts, it wasn't the cleanest executed game, but man, it was close and had stakes right down to the very end, delivered in a way that rivalry usually does. And Michigan found a way to pull it out this weekend, Dad. They are now firmly in the driver's seat. I think you can put them in pen for the college football playoffs. They're 20-point favorites against Iowa in the Big Ten championships there after Iowa peak Iowa in the final game of their season against Nebraska. But, Dad, for this Michigan team, this was one of the two games that we had circled in November that might actually test them. They get past the other one in Penn State, and now they go out here and for the third straight year beat their rival in Ohio State, beat them in this case without Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. Sharon Moore, their offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, was at the helm again for the third straight game while Harbaugh was suspended. What did you take away from this win for the Wolverines?
Well, I mean, they won how we expect them to win, right? Just kind of pound the rock. They ended up running the ball, I think, 39 times. Not for the greatest average, 4 yards a carry, but you're controlling the ball for basically, 160 yards in that area there. McCarthy only threw the ball 20 times, but completed 16 of them. So no turnovers there. They didn't intercept the ball. They didn't lose any fumbles. They played a clean game. And in a game like this, that's what's going to be the deciding factor. And for, Kyle McCord, he had a couple of interceptions in this one. And in these games, that's kind of what you look at as kind of game changers. But Michigan did it the way we thought. I know McCarthy last year had to throw the ball to win. This year, they just continue to do what they're doing. Blake Corum leads the nation, I think, now with 22 rushing touchdowns. They have a phenomenal line, even though they lost their right guard. What a horrible injury to Zinner. Just such a shame for the leader of that old line. Broke his leg, his tibia and fibula. So that's hope for a quick recovery, or as quick as you can in that one. But they did it their way. I mean, and you wondered, Ohio State's chance was going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., right? I mean, that was going to be it. He ended up with 116 yards receiving, and you kept waiting for that big play out of him, especially when they're down trying to come back, as you're just waiting for the ball to go his way.
It's an interesting game to look at from that perspective because you mentioned how each team was going to win this one. And you're right. Marvin Harrison Jr., we looked at and said, hey, this is the difference in the game. Roman Wilson's great. These other guys, the tight end from Michigan, all really good players. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player on that field, probably on either side of the ball. And if he could go out there and do that, it was. And actually, Dad, I thought for the most part, Ohio State through the air looked like we expected with some of the big plays here. Kyle McCord is not a great quarterback, especially not by Ohio State standards. No. But he had a few of those throws down the field that made you sort of go, okay, this is why. This is why he was an Ohio State football recruit, because he made a bunch of those. The difference in this game, J.J. McCarthy had a few of those FU throws too in there, but he made more of the layups. He made more of the easy throws. There were way too many easy balls near the line of scrimmage that ended up in the dirt for Kyle McCord. The offense, relative to what we expected from their run game, was able to open up some holes against a really good Michigan defense, and they had this close the entire time. It was a turnover within the body of the game because the final turnover came on that last drive for Kyle McCord in this Ohio State offense. But really, the turnover was the difference in the whole game. And then, Dad, I want to give credit to Sharon Moore. I said it after the game, and I understand the sign-stealing scandal might cloud some of the opportunities ahead. And people inside Michigan think, hey, if Harbaugh jumps, Sharon Moore looks like he could be the heir apparent. That guy's a head coach. And the way that he approached the two biggest challenges of Michigan's season, the adjustments he made against Penn State in that game, the fourth down aggressiveness in this game, the way that he helped his tackles out against these great Ohio State pass rushers on the edges, all of it, the in-game decision-making that Jim Harbaugh couldn't help him out with. Jim Harbaugh was around during the week, but when it came to how he managed the football game, did Sharon Moore, going back to early in the season. Remember, Jim Harbaugh suspended for those first few games, gave coaching opportunities, the head coaching opportunities, to some of his assistants, including Sharon Moore. You're seeing the value in that for a guy who was always going to be a head coaching candidate. The 37-year-old Moore had been a great job as their offensive line coach, back-to-back Joe Moore winning offensive line, offensive coordinator full-time this season, was the co-coordinator before that. He demonstrated with real reps in a game where he could not be helped by his boss why I think he's going to do a great job as somebody's head coach in the very near, not so distant future. Whether that is Michigan or whether that's somebody else, I thought he stepped up big time. And against Ryan Day, who, despite what Ohio State fans say, I think is a pretty good coach, went out here and really outdueled him at certain points.
Ryan Day has 6 losses in his tenure, and all to ranked teams. I mean, it's the only losses he has. Unfortunately, 3 of them have now come to Michigan. And we were saying the same thing about Harbaugh a few years ago when he lost a couple in a row, but was still winning outside of that. It's like, how long do the alumni take that? And so do you say the same thing at Ohio State? But this guy has been incredibly successful. But if you're not winning that game, it usually means you're not in the Big Ten championship, which usually means you're not in the playoffs. Now, last year they did get in the playoffs. And we know what a change, Mike. Do you realize that Michigan, Ohio State, which is played once a year for God knows how long, starting next year, could literally play 3 times in a season?
Yeah.
Because the divisions are gone, so they could play in the regular season, they could play for the Big Ten championship now, and then they could meet in the playoffs as well. So that's what we've gone to. What was on the line for that game yesterday to the fact that they might play 3 times, which certainly for those detractors of a 12-game playoff, that's why they don't like this system, is you lose kind of games like this, and what the effect is on it. And there's part of me that agrees of how it's going to change. I still like the 12-team playoff, but that's where this could go, that these teams could face each other 3 times. But Michigan, I think, was the better team. Michigan is going to have a great shot to win the title by playing their game. And that's lining up, which, you're a voter, I'm not. They could be the Joe Moore Award winners again. That offensive line, they're just a bludgeoning old line. Blake Corum runs hard behind them. He's not a big guy, but he just tucks in behind those guys. And McCarthy is a very accurate thrower and doesn't turn the ball over. It's a great recipe to win.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the differences in a close game, you're right. McCarthy and McCord, I don't think are that far apart in terms of overall talent. J.J. McCarthy has been a good college quarterback. He's been the best quarterback in the Harbaugh era of Michigan by far. I don't think he's like a NFL starter by any means. I agree. Won't be anywhere near the first round, anything like that, but very good college quarterback and is mobile. I think that's the biggest difference is Kyle McCord's got some decent throws in the bag, but can't move around and buy you time in the way that if you're not going to be a future first round, future top overall pick like Drake May or Caleb Williams, being mobile is your next best bet. And other than that, for Ryan Day, and I think part of this is always going to go back to Dad, the conversation that erupted after the Notre Dame game, where's Lou Holtz and the toughness conversation around his team. I won't talk about toughness because I think that's a mentality that I can't speak to, but Michigan controlled the lines of scrimmage in the moments that mattered most. Ohio State's defensive front seven still showed up in the ways that you would expect. I felt bad. Tommy Eichenberg, who was coming back from injury in that game, was basically playing on one arm out there, and it showed in coverage. It showed on a couple of missed tackles. You could tell that guy was just way less than 100%, but wanted to put it on the line for his team in the biggest game of the season. And so you had some of those issues, but Michigan, once again, this rivalry, when it turned, was Michigan embracing full Big Ten. They went full Big Ten in their identity and said, we're going to do blunt force trauma better than anybody, while Ohio State had been a team who had transcended athletically, recruited at a level that was different than everyone else in this conference. And now, Dad, the Ryan Day question, as we kind of see some of what's gone on in the coaching carousel, is there were people that started talking about and whispering about his name potentially for the Texas A&M job. Ohio State fans seem to want to be rid of him. And you have the perfect example on the other side of the field about why patience is probably the virtue that you need to ascribe to here. Yep. I get losing this game 3 times in a row sucks, but that was the book on Jim Harbaugh for the longest time. Yep. And so Ohio State's a bit of a different job because the program is so talent rich, and it's one of the few programs that exists on that plane where you feel like hey, you can put a lot of people in that coaching chair, and I think they'd be pretty successful. But I think Ryan Day does so much well for you and still is a great play caller, still put them in plenty of positions to win. You just didn't have a future first-round quarterback like you usually do at Ohio State to go with the cavalcade of great wide receivers that were in that room. And I would say, Dad, more often than not, I'm counting on Ohio State to the way they recruit, especially in the quarterback room, get a guy back in there pretty soon who's probably going to be first-round caliber and erase some of the issues that popped up this season because Kyle McCord was your guy.
Plus, like I said, it all changes, right? Next year, if this happened, they would be playing again next week for the Big Ten Championship. So you get another shot at them. So I agree. I mean, we just went through this with Harbaugh. Day, who are you getting? Who are you getting that's going to be better unless you're coaxing, Urban Meyer is coming back, which I'm sure a lot of Ohio State people would eyebrows would raise on that one and say, yeah, give us Urban back. But Ryan Day, he beat Michigan a couple times in a row over Harbaugh. So it's always, to me, who you're going to get that's going to make it better. And they showed patience with Harbaugh and look at payoff, and I think they should do the same thing with Day. What I will say is we have 5 Power 5 conference championship games. There is no bigger lock than Michigan as a 22-point favorite over Iowa. That there are 4 undefeated teams left at the top 4 ranked teams. And it'll make it easy, though there will be question. If all 4 win their conference championships, they should all be in. And I know we'll get to the conversation about Florida State. Would they have a one-loss team jump them because they don't have their quarterback? But for Michigan, is there a better lock right now than betting Michigan wins the Big Ten championship and will be, wherever they're going to be seated in the Final Four?
The biggest lock is betting whatever the under is on that game, because if the Iowa Hawkeyes are playing in that game, that under is cashing, baby. That has been lucrative for everybody involved. But that is kind of the whole weekend. And you're right, we're going to have the conversation at some point, because I've already seen the rumblings. I saw Chris Felica, Alex Kirshner, both great guys that cover college football that I respect a lot, talking about what the committee's got on its hands now because of this Florida State situation, where it's a rivalry game, but it was a sub-500 Florida team that played Florida State right down to the wire. And Tate Rodemaker looked fine in that game. I didn't get to watch as much of that as I wanted to, and so I want to kind of reserve a more definitive opinion on this until I have the time to look back. But, Dad, I think 2 things can be true, right? In the 4-team playoff era, as we try and combine best versus most deserving, Florida State, if they finish their season winning a rivalry game and winning against a ranked Louisville team that's going to fall because they lost to Kentucky in their final game of the season, and we've been wondering all along, all right, how real is this Louisville team? If they go out and win those 2 games, they probably should be in the college football playoff, and it will be an objectively worse product than if 12-1 Texas wins the Big 12 and would be in there and jump them. And for a committee who's supposed to be the human committee, who's supposed to be able to see past just what a BCS computer would have shot out, even though year after year, when you look at the Final Four in college football during the playoff era, you've basically seen the same teams that the BCS computers would have spit out. This would finally present a real challenge to that group of, all right, we're supposed to account for who's not out there on the field. We've got the Ohio State example, but, Dad, we talked about it before the show. Cardale Jones and that Ohio State team blitzed Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game before they jumped TCU on that final weekend. And I do think, while I still think ultimately the right move would be to reward Florida State for their whole body of work, for persevering through that and give them a shot at this, part of me would appreciate the committee doing the hard thing that I know would tick a lot of people off in the name of actually giving us the 4 best teams if Florida State doesn't show up and doesn't perform in a big way in this game against Louisville.
Yeah, I get that. I get it. But I'm still putting them in. I'm going to say, okay, you lost your quarterback and you still won your last 2 games. A rivalry game. Listen, we could talk about how bad Florida was. Auburn was 6-5. And had Alabama beat.
No, it's
okay.
A great
had
point.
them beat
to a
0.1% chance of Alabama winning, and Alabama pulled it off. So rivalry week is what it is, man. You see some upsets, and we did see that. There is no chance, even in a close game, where I'm not giving FSU. And you're right. If you sit there and look at the part of it of the eye test, are they one of the best 4 to sit there and say no, not without their quarterback? I still say, you know what? You won your last 2 games. One was a rivalry game. One was the ACC championship game. you're going in. You're undefeated. I am not putting a one-loss team over an undefeated Florida State team, as much as that will be the only discussion, because you have 4 undefeateds. If they all remain undefeated, to me, that's your Final Four. And FSU would be number 4 in that, I'm sure. But that would be the only discussion should they not be there because their quarterback is gone. But my answer to that is their quarterback was gone the last 2 games, and they found a way to win. So put them in. They deserve the chance to be in, and then we kind of cross our fingers a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. We'll wait and see. We'll have more time to spin through some of the wheels of that tomorrow. Did want to mention, Dad, as we're starting to get silly season going here, the coaching carousel in college football is beginning to spin right now, and the biggest domino hanging in the balance because of some of the names that were involved in the process is Texas A&M. And we saw over the weekend the will they, won't they with Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops after their big win over Louisville in that rivalry game. It sounded like it was a done deal, and then all of a sudden in the wee hours of the morning, that goes away. You see Mark Stoops put out the statement about the conversations he had with his team and staff about staying in Kentucky, which, by the way, you would have to pry me out of that job with a crowbar. Incredible with what he has paid, the resources you have in that conference, and the expectations being reasonable in the SEC because you're a basketball school. I get you had your beef with Cal over some of that stuff, but man, it's a pretty good gig, all things considered, given what's on the other side of this at Texas A&M. Clearly, if this process is any indication. But Dad, it sounds like the Aggies are going to bring Mike Elko home, the former defensive coordinator back in 2019 for Texas A&M. Sources told ESPN there's a deal in place, or an agreement in place, to bring Duke's head coach back to College Station to try and revitalize this. I said at the beginning of the process he probably would have been the guy I went and pulled the trigger on. I know Jeff Traylor at UTSA came up there too, but Elko's a guy who offensively and defensively along the lines of scrimmage did wonders at Duke and was able to make that program a 9-win team in year 1 and competitive before quarterback injury decimated them this year. It sucks because it's the unfunniest hire in a chaotic situation, but a really good one, I think.
Yeah, it is. So I'm happy for him. He was at A&M as an assistant coach, goes his first year at Duke last year as the ACC Coach of the Year. And this year they were having a season until, that loss to Notre Dame, and Riley Leonard, their quarterback, hurt his ankle and, has been in and out of the lineup because he was such a big part of that offense. So I'm a fan of Elko, a big fan of Mike Elko. I'm happy for him, though bummed for Duke. I mean, they had him there for a couple of years. Looked like that program was going in the right direction for sure. And that's the one thing about it. There's always a losing side of this. And for the Duke players who got to see him for like 2 years and now he's gone, but we know that's what happens now. To expect a coach to be there, I don't think any coach can, with a straight face anymore, in a living room recruiting a kid saying, I will be with your son for his entire career. I don't think any head coach can realistically say that anymore with a straight face because there's so much changes that go on. So I feel bad for Duke for the direction it was going, and already your coach is pulled out of there. But I'm happy for Elko, who is a rising star there, and deservedly so.
And your point about the players is well served. It's why, as people always weigh the pros and cons or try and malign the portal, I'm thankful for it in situations like this. It's worth noting, too, we have the 2 open periods where players can jump into the portal. If your coach leaves, that day starts today. So as of today, all of the Duke players have the ability to enter their name in the portal and start to look around for their future. You wonder if there's any of them that might make their way with Mike Elko to College Station. Because, Dad, you can't blame him either. And as we look around college football right now, Jonathan Smith, the former Oregon State coach, making the move to Michigan State over the weekend and filling that vacancy, you can understand in Duke's case because of the money, and in Jonathan Smith's case because of the edge of oblivion that Oregon State and Washington State kind of sit on right now, why you would jump ship there.
Yeah, quite honestly, if the Pac-12 was still together, I don't know if he would jump ship from Washington State to Michigan State. I don't know if that's arguably a better
Oregon
job,
State.
But Oregon State. But given the fact of what's going on with those 2 schools, Oregon State and Washington State, you get why he made the move. So next thing is going to be the amount of big-time players that are going to skip their bowl game as they get ready for the NFL. That'll be one of the next discussions we start having.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. In this age of social media, sometimes things can be overwhelming. Like sometimes you talk about having caviar and stone crabs for Thanksgiving, and then you can never live that down because things live on the internet forever. The latest victim of social media, Justin Jefferson. Okay, he's really feeling the heat right now. He's missed the last 6 games after that hamstring strain on October 8th against the Chiefs. He's not expected to play against the Bears tonight. Fans have been getting increasingly impatient, waiting for him to return. They've been taking to social media to voice their opinions. In response, Jefferson posted on Twitter that his health is more important than fantasy football. So he's tired of the negative reaction to the fact that he's been out, and he did address it on Friday.
If I miss this one, it's going to be the 7th game. So it's definitely frustrating. It's tough to be patient and trying to make sure an injury heals properly. It's definitely not something that I want to do, but it just comes with the game. It comes with trying to be healthy, trying to be 100%, and just carrying the safe route.
So he has since deactivated his social media accounts. So that brings us into what to expect for this matchup tonight. Obviously, do not expect Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and you know what? Smart move by him. It's a cesspool on there. Like the more and more we go along, and like Twitter's demise and the way that it's been just bulldozed under Elon Musk, it's invited even more venom into people's lives. But Dad, this has always been a tough place for athletes, and I'm empathetic to the modern athlete. Like I'm always fascinated talking to you and players from your era about these things. I always said the daywalker of social media and athletics because we got that when I was in college. We didn't have a lot of that same access to people when I was going through early on in the time that I was playing at a level that you would get this kind of criticism. But you saw it leak in, and for athletes now who these guys have all grown up on social media their entire lives, even if you're doing your best to avoid it, the poison still drips in. And for a guy in Justin Jefferson who has every reason to be one of the most confident people in the entire world because of his ability, you could see that that's wearing on him, having to see and hear all of this stuff, this steady din of poison day after day. And I appreciate the fact that that guy decided, hey, not only my physical health, but my mental well-being during what's got to be a tough stretch for him to watch his guys go out there and put it on the line without him, to see Josh Dobbs coming over in these adverse situations and putting it on the mat, not be able to help. That stuff is incredibly taxing after a while.
And by the way, they lost last week, but they won 5 games in a row before that. So it's not like they went on this losing streak when he was out of the game. Man, it is different because we didn't deal with this in my era growing up. I would just love the player to not even make it public that I deactivated it and just ignore. Who gives a damn what the people think? I mean, Justin, you are doing the absolute positively right thing. A hamstring on a wide receiver? Are you kidding me? That thing needs to be gold before he steps back out on that field, or all he's doing is re-injuring it. And I get it. Social media, you hear it. It's tough to take over and over again. But I would love the fact that he just started ignoring it and not even acknowledge that he deactivated it. He can just ignore these people who have zero input in this, zero to do with it, to try and get on him that he should be back on the field. That's laughable.
Yeah, I would like to say be above it, but as someone who spent yesterday arguing in my mentions with Notre Dame fans about the nature of a 9-win season, sometimes you just can't help yourself because we've all been poisoned by internet brain to some extent at this juncture.
It's unrealistic of me to think you could just ignore it all because, listen, I didn't grow up in this era, but I still answer back every now and then until I realize, what am I doing? Just stop. If you have an opinion, give your opinion, and move on. So I do get it, especially if you've grown up in this era. But my gosh, and people giving him a hard time because he's not back on the field. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's laughable. Like I said, he's absolutely doing the right thing. And, oh, by the way, as I said, they are winning while he's getting healthy. So just think of how much better they can be when he's fully healthy and coming back.
So let's look at the game that we're talking about tonight, Dad. They are 3-point favorites against the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. And for Kevin O'Connell's outfit, I think the most interesting part of this game for me, Dad, because I expect the Vikings offense to keep producing against this Bears defense, but the Minnesota Vikings defense and all of the pressure that Brian Flores likes to throw at people as now the second test back for Justin Fields, who looked pretty good in his return last weekend there. They made use of him as a rusher especially. Right. I think he had 18 rushes for 104 yards in that game. They did a bunch of the things we've been asking them to do for a long time with Justin Fields. And I'm excited to see it against the pressure cooker of this defense, because the amount and varied levels of pressure that this Vikings group is going to throw at him is going to test Justin Fields' ability to problem solve. And I think for them, because they're in information gathering mode for the rest of this year on what they're going to do with that top draft pick as it pertains to him, this is a really good spot down the stretch to now get to throw him out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And first on Minnesota side, it blows my mind the one-score games that they're 5-5. They have 10 one-score games. They're 5-5 this year.
Yeah.
5-5 this season in games decided by one score. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how that stat of how they continue to play close games. So this is a monster game for them, as right now they are in the playoffs as a wild card. Them and Dallas would hold the first two slots there, as we have, like I said, about a handful of games ago. And we continue to say this about Chicago. Does Chicago? I have a feeling, Mike, I don't know what you think. And again, we never, ever will call for anybody's job, but we know it happens. I have a feeling it's going to be one way or the other. I don't know if there's going to be an in-between of a clean sweep. Quarterback, coach, maybe even GM as well, where they all stay or they're all changed. I'm not sure if there'll be a partial here or not.
Oh, interesting. So you think it's not like an either, neither, or both situation. You think this is all or nothing when it comes to the battery of decision makers and players in the Chicago front office?
I'm thinking it might be. That they would want to start fresh if they did bring in somebody new, to start with their own quarterback, whoever they want to bring in at that point. That's just my thought on the way business is done. And I don't agree with a lot of the ways business is done. I think you make changes too quick in the NFL, because people got to understand when you change a coach, you're changing assistants, you're changing scheme, you're changing personality. You are taking 2 steps back before you take a step forward again. So I am not a fan of doing that at all. Yet we see 4 to 7 coaches every year in the NFL, and some after 1 year. My God, people talking about Frank Reich head being on the chopping block. Are you kidding me? You have a rookie quarterback, and I know it's been different in Houston. You've seen some better results there. But to sit there and think you're going to end that process after 1 year is just a joke. The trigger is pulled too quickly, in my opinion, in the NFL on some of these coaches.
I completely understand that. It is complicated, you're right, by the quarterback, and it's why I think Ryan Poles could end up surviving this, just because Justin Fields wasn't his draft pick. And so we see a lot of moves, I think, get made out of self-preservation when it comes to football, right? Between a coach that all of a sudden decides, hey, at the end of a season, I'm going to start our rookie quarterback to show people, hey, I just need time with the new guy. Look at what we might have on the line in the future, and do that. Matt Eberflus doesn't have that opportunity. But if you're Ryan Poles and you're looking at the end of this season, I wonder if there's part of you that's saying, hey, if I can sell them on, we're going to go in with one of these top picks that we've got, get my guy at quarterback and restart the clock here, if all of a sudden you can buy some time. It's not to say that Ryan Poles has been perfect in some of the in-season trade moves that he's made with the franchise in the last couple of years, but that does seem like the way I think, Dad, where you could have one member of that battery brought back.
And then again, a handful of games left. Justin Fields, what if he plays well? What if he starts looking really good? Moving the ball, throwing the ball. It's going to make that decision even more interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had at some point this week on quarterbacks that are playing for their kind of existential portion of their NFL career, or at least their job with their current team. I think of Kyler Murray and I think of Justin Fields in very similar spots. Teams with a chance at a top pick who have a quarterback that they either spent first-round capital on or, in Kyler's case, real capital on after the fact, and what they can possibly do to stick around.
Back to GoJo and Golic. It is time for our aptly named segment, Holiday Leftovers, because you see, we've been off since last Wednesday, guys. So we have a lot of hashtag content to get to. 3 Thanksgiving games, a Black Friday game. So we're going to get to what leftover takes you guys have brewing. My leftover take is that Jack Harlow got his set for his halftime show from the dollar store.
Oh my God! The halftime shows. Shame on the Dallas Cowboys. You know what? I shouldn't say shame on the Dallas Cowboys because Dolly Parton is a national treasure. Getting her back out there, putting out a rock album at 77 years old after going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, dressing up as the Cowboys cheerleader. It was immaculate. She did a great job. It was awesome to see Dolly out there. But having that side-by-side comparison with what we saw from Jack Harlow's performance, that I just went to Buc-ee's for the first time. You could find that inflatable thing right going into the front door at Buc-ee's. 100% there. I don't know what went into that, Dad, but the side-by-side comparison was absolutely the thief of joy for Jack Harlow in front of Detroit.
One was like a Super Bowl halftime production, and the other was like when I used to watch you kids in middle school do like a Christmas concert. I mean, which, you know, just crazy, ridiculous kind of backdrops. I'm stunned that, you know, Jesse, we were talking about this before the show, how that was approved, how anybody looked at that set and said, yeah, this is how we're going to go, you know, as you mentioned, to the dollar store. Let's get all our props for it there.
They were like, yeah, this looks like it came from the Christmas tree shop in the back in the sales section, but let's go with it.
And Dolly
You're
Parton,
going to see that set up on somebody's front lawn for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very true. But Dolly Parton, 77, wearing a cheerleader's outfit. I mean, coming out, and she said when she got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, she said that was kind of weird because she'd never done a rock album. So she does a rock album with a lot of the greats. I mean, God love her. I mean, that was fantastic what she did. But boy, oh boy, what a difference. And you're never sure what you're going to get on some of those halftime shows. And we got both ends of the spectrum on that one.
We sure did.
We absolutely did. I will say, though, the biggest miss in all of this, during the revival that we've seen going on thanks to the Texas Rangers, the Minnesota Vikings, how someone did not get Creed back out, who's doing shows. I saw Creed was performing in Vegas before the Formula One race. Yep. They got the Cruise coming up here. I have my number 11 Dallas Cowboys Scott Stapp jersey in the closet. In fact, you guys vamp. I'm going to go get this for a second and just show people how serious we are. I almost broke my chair. Hold on.
You go ahead, but Jesse, I understand why because he's a Cowboy fan, but I understand why they wouldn't do it and let Dolly Parton have her moment, because she's on top of the world right now. So you got to go with that. And I thought it was fantastic. So I get the Cowboys not doing them instead of Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton just is obviously the GOAT. Oh, okay. Oh, he's back. Oh, okay.
You see this, America?
He's back.
This is what we could have had. All right? I had to go to NFLshop.com to get this. So congrats to the NFL. Send the check to Creed for making this happen. This is what we could have had. We could have had the dude flying from the rafters again, the shirtless bald guy coming out of nowhere. This is what we could have given America on one of its holiest holidays in Thanksgiving weekend of the NFL. And instead, no one had the foresight. Like, at least let me know that you made the call. Let me know that Creed told you no before I can go on and feel good about this.
But not to the Cowboys game, right? While you were going to get that jersey, I was telling Jesse, the Cowboys got it right. I mean, Dolly Parton is doing her thing right now. She's on top of the world. So that was a great move, getting Dolly Parton there. So did you want him to do the show in Detroit or for the Seattle-San Francisco game? Because I think it was the right call to get Dolly in Dallas and not Creed back there.
He disagrees strongly.
Yeah.
Dolly was great.
I love Dolly Parton. Dolly was great. This isn't about Dolly.
Great.
This isn't about Dolly. This is about Creed. She's great. All respect to Dolly Parton. Don't come for me. But, man, we should have gone out here and, helped everyone survive the Great Divide. So I'll put that pin in that one as far as leftovers right now. But, again, NFL, you got a chance to make this right. Super Bowl halftime show 2025. Creed. Book it. Get it done. Give the people what they want. You might have missed the boat by a year, but you're no stranger to that with the halftime show anyway. It's always kind of on tape delay with what we want. Get Creed out there. Scott Stapp, return my calls. My bit of leftovers was the Greg Popovich audio from their game against the Los Angeles Clippers. So Kawhi Leonard was back in San Antonio, longtime Spur, going to the free throw line, and he understandably gets booed because that's what the home crowd does when an opposing player is shooting free throws. And I have never seen this before in my life. This is Greg Popovich deciding it was open mic night, chastising his home crowd.
Excuse me for a second.
Pops on the mic.
Stop all the booing and let these guys play. It's got no class. It's not who we are. Knock off the booing.
And he gets booed.
I'm telling the fans to lay off Kawhi Leonard.
That was the best. That was the best part about it is he got booed immediately after.
It's not who we are. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Can there be
exactly who we are?
Yeah.
Can there be anything more high school than that? I mean, seriously, Pop, what are you doing? What are you doing telling paid customers to stop booing if they want to boo?
Paying customers who have been drinking.
They weren't doing anything wrong.
No.
You can boo all you want. Boo. I mean, but to grab the mic and tell them to stop booing, I just thought, my God, we're in grade school or high school. What are we doing?
They said, boo this man. He started doing that. And
they did say boo this. I'm generally on the anti-booing side of things, like booing the home team at home or booing in a lot of situations, like when you have an all-time great player that comes back originally. Russell Wilson, I thought, going back to Seattle and all that stuff we talked about pregame. But this is one of those spots where I'm like, contextually in the game, it makes sense. The end of that tenure was kind of rocky. It makes sense. So So I, of all people, had no problem with this and was very confused why Greg Popovich. Now, he said after the game, and this would have been the much more reasonable explanation, is I don't want to poke the bear. Greg Popovich knows how good Kawhi Leonard can be when he's healthy and weaponized on the floor. And he said, I just didn't want to go out there and piss him off because, again, the wise man once said, you don't get bonus points for playing against somebody when they're mad and motivated. But that was not the reason he gamed during the game. Appealing to class of drunk fans, Jesse's absolutely right. Not the way to go.
It just so on par that when you say that, you get booed. I'm going to go to the Jets Fail Mary. I mean, wow. So the Jets try a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and Javon Holland was one of the guys back deep, and he intercepts the ball, and he's got a whole lot of yard in front of him. And, Mike, here's not why I'm not shocked that he scored. And I've said the same thing about, go back to the Alabama-Auburn missed field goal, the short field goal that was returned for a touchdown. Tell me this, Mike. Dude intercepts a Hail Mary and starts running. Who's left? Who's left? He's now in front of all the wide receivers. You know who's left?
Yep.
Offensive lineman and a quarterback. That's who's left. And that's what I say the same thing about a short field goal, because I've been on these field goal teams. You have 7 of the 11 people are either O-linemen and a holder and a kicker.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then there was me as a D lineman, and then usually a tight end or a linebacker at the wing. So it was normally a D lineman or tight ends are the other 4 on there. So you have 5 O-linemen, a holder and a kicker, and 4 athletes out on the field. That's who's meant to stop that returner. And the same thing on this Hail Mary. You're now in front of all the wide receivers. You have to beat 5 offensive linemen and a quarterback. You know what? When you look at those odds, you can understand why Holland made it all the way for the touchdown.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's my worst nightmare. And I feel like between plays like that and plays like anytime the defense puts a returner back on a field goal, now after in a post-kick 6 world, and we're a decade out from that, every time I hold my breath, because you're right. As someone who has been in those situations, and I will never forget, I was on the punt shield covering punts when we played Tulsa at Notre Dame. They had a dynamic returner, and I'm down there, and I'm not supposed to make the tackle. I'm just supposed to run down there and look funny wearing a 49 jersey and an alternate one. And I get over to the sideline, and all of a sudden the guy breaks contain, and it's me and this returner one-on-one over on the sideline. And I'm doing all the stuff that I hear in special teams meetings, but never thought I'd actually have to do. Use the sideline as an extra tackler, try and angle him that way. And at the last second, I lunge, and I fall flat on my stomach, completely whiff and miss him, and I look up at a bunch of Tulsa offensive linemen that are like, yeah, it's all right, man. No one else can touch him either. We understand. So we're not built for that. We're not supposed to do that. Don't ask us to do that. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, and normally this is the time of show where we get to this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off into your day. We still encourage you to download, subscribe, rate, review, and do all that fun stuff after watching us here live 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. But every once in a while, a little bit of breaking news drops into our lap, and we got to go from there. And per Tom Pelissaro of the NFL Network, Dad, we were sitting around talking about some of the coaching hot seats today and how quickly people turn over. It was announced that the Carolina Panthers have parted way with their head coach, Frank Reich, in just his first season down in Carolina. So, Dad, I don't feel like we can act surprised by this stuff anymore, especially with this franchise and this owner. Since David Tepper took over, whether it's the quarterback or the coach, there's been a tremendously short leash for production.
It's a joke. It's a damn joke is what it is. I mean, you give Matt Rule a 6-year deal, you go a little over 2 years, and you can him and you're paying him. And now Frank Reich doesn't even get a year? I mean, that's a joke. I mean, and your organization, which is, going back 4 or 5 years, 7-10, 5-12, 5-11, 5-11, guess what? You're not getting better when you keep changing the landscape like this quickly. You have a defense right now that by yardage is top 10, right? They're a top 10 defense. So that part of the ball has been playing better. You have a rookie quarterback. And I don't know how much the owner is looking over at Houston and saying, well, if their rookie quarterback can have them in the playoff race, then why can't ours? I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing, in my opinion, that you can do. So unless there's something that is going on in the locker room between Frank Reich and that team, I will not understand this move at all. You have now stopped the progress, and you will now go backward a little bit, bringing in a new coach and a new system, unless it's someone who keeps the same system. I don't get it, Mike. I don't understand why people pull the trigger so fast because they see things not working right away.
And GoJo, you mentioned that there's been just like a ton of turnover since he took over the team. David Tepper, this would be his 4th head coach since he bought the team in 2018. If they're moving on.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah,
good luck to you in having this as a game plan. Good luck.
Yeah, it's one of those things you look at, Dad. Firing a coach through one season. We saw it happen with Nathaniel Hackett out in Denver, who was a first-time head coach. And when things go incredibly poorly, like so poorly, so much worse than you could have possibly planned in this league, especially where you don't have to worry about the effects of recruiting. You don't have to worry about resetting the cycle that way or in the portal era losing out on guys. This is the NFL. Guys are paid. You go out there and buy players and all the things that have been a part of this system. I think it's a little less damning overall to the strength of your program to make a change at head coach at this particular level. But this is a real scorpion and the frog situation for David Tepper, where at some point you got to look around at all of this rotating and decision making and wondering, hey, it might just be you. Because since 2018 when he bought the team too, look at the quarterbacks. Cam Newton, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, Will Grier, Teddy Bridgewater, PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young now, and Andy Dalton in this season. Nobody in a position of power there has gotten along to show that they might have the potential to be something at that spot. And that's something that I'd imagine, well, money cures everything. And there's going to be some coach who's going to look at this job and the potential paycheck and having Bryce Young as the number 1 overall pick there and say, I'll take a shot. I'd imagine people notice and talk about this stuff after a while of, hey, if you go down to Carolina, you might have an opportunity to do something, but if you don't show it soon, and that changes the way that you approach this from a team building standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, from a playing standpoint, when you feel like the seat under you is hot the minute you sit down.
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, and if there's a choice out there for a seasoned coach, I don't know why they would choose Carolina. If there's a choice, now sometimes you don't, and it's the only one that's available to you. Why would you take that outside if you know you're going to get some guaranteed money, right? However long your deal is, you're getting that money, and they're going to have to buy you out. I just think it's such a joke, Mike. You just mentioned the change in quarterbacks. Jesse mentioned the change in head coaches. How do you expect to go in the right direction as a franchise when you continually stir the waters? When nothing is calming there, nothing. You are completely the duck with your feet underwater. You might as well have the feet above the water as well, because you look like just a frantic organization that can't make the right move, and when you can't, you just reshuffle the deck as soon as you possibly can. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't see any bright future for this team for a while.
Well, and I think it again goes back to when it seems like every decision you've made is the wrong one, at some point that falls on the decision maker, right? And because David Tepper owns the team, it's not going to change anything. But we talk about this all the time with GMs. When you miss on a couple of straight quarterbacks that you acquire, the GM tends to not survive, because why are we going to give you a chance to make another bad decision here? And for David Tepper, at some point, we talk about the brass nuts that he has on his desk or whatever in the article when he first came out there. At some point, it's you and the brass pair there that have to look at each other in the mirror and say, what are we doing in this decision-making? Now, you took the Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick. He's going to be there for at least the next 3 years after that, we'd imagine. But even that's got to feel kind of tenuous at this point if it doesn't start to bear fruit next season. This roster, we knew going into the year, was not in a place. We thought the offensive line would be better. That one took a decided step back in a way that was a little bit harder to forecast. But skill position wise, when Adam Thielen was your best receiver, it never felt like they were set up for a ton of success. And I get that we've talked about when the offense or that side of the ball is your specialty. We did this with Brandon Staley and the Chargers all season long now. Frank Reich, this is his baby. The offense was the thing that he was supposed to have in order. At some point, you hear every coach say it, though. This is Jimmy's and Joe's league, man. You can only XO so much away. And while, yes, Houston has been able to microwave success this season, I think there are a laundry list of things that you can point to as stark differences in how that's been built to this point versus what the Carolina Panthers walked into this year with.
It's ridiculous. I mean, your old line has had issues. Your leading receiver by a ton is a 32-year-old wide receiver, because you traded one away to get Bryce Young and DJ Moore. 77 receptions. Next closest is Mingo at 28. I mean, you're going to put this on Frank Reich? I mean, are you kidding me? And now you're starting over again. It's embarrassing, quite honestly, to me. It's embarrassing, not just for this move, but the moves that have been made, and you just keep picking up a new card and reshuffling and reshuffling and reshuffling. You're not going to find success that way. You have to let something try and stick for a little bit, and Tepper is not even close to being able to do that. Thank God he's got a lot of money, because he's just going to continue to pay people as he hires them and fires them.
And it's official, guys. We got a statement here. As you can see, I met with Coach Reich this morning and informed him he will not continue as head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Want to thank Frank for his dedication and service, and we wish him well. Effective immediately, special teams coordinator Chris Tabor will serve as our interim head coach. Senior assistant Jim Caldwell will be a special advisor to offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, who will take over play calling duties. Statement attributed to David Tepper.
It is fascinating. Like, even Josh McDaniels got a season and a half with the Las Vegas Raiders, despite that. Now, Dad, the stakes are different, and I think this is kind of the next segue is, what kind of appeal does this job have outside of just the dollars and cents of it, when you know you're walking in and whoever the next head coach is? And I'd imagine part of the reason that Frank Reich was judged in this situation was they didn't feel like they were getting the best that they could out of their rookie number 1 overall pick at quarterback that they mortgaged so much to go up and get. For another coach coming in, you do have that as a selling point, but all of this in the background is certainly a net negative for anyone thinking about that.
Yeah, and if there's any thought of, well, look what they're doing in Houston, that's fool's gold on the part of Tepper. If that went into his thought process at all about, well, look what they're doing, we should be able to do it. Matt Rule got over 2 years. Matt Rule got over 2 years before he got let go. Frank Reich got 11 games. So I'll say it again. Unless I hear something was going on in that locker room, this is a ridiculous move by an owner who just has an itchy trigger finger and keeps changing the landscape, which means congratulations. You won't be good for a long, long time.
Well, we'll see. He's banking it. David Tepper, the one thing is the foot's been fully down on the gas pedal since he walked into the building. So we'll wait and see more coming out on that. But again, Frank Reich out as the Carolina Panthers head coach. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Don't fire us. And check us out back here again, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. Thanks so much.